Shalom again, everybody. Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, found online at www.koshertorah.com, bringing to you today's daily lesson in the Sefer Yetzirah. Today, lesson 86, as we begin the final chapter, number 6. We dedicate these classes, of course, to the safety, the health, the well-being, the blessing, the prosperity, and the protection of everybody around the world, with the hope and the prayer that you understand what our Sefer Yetzirah is all about for real. Take it out of the theory, put it into practice, and change your world, because that is what this is all about. Chapter 6. What an interesting chapter. Rabbi Haim has almost no commentary to this chapter whatsoever. So, rather than just read the text and leave it at that, I'm going to take you into some other materials. I'm going to take you into some materials I discussed in my previous 40-hour class, the big, long, meditative one on prophetic Kabbalah version of the Sefer Yetzirah from Rabbi Moshe Cordovero and Avram Abulafia. Well, at this point, we've learned all about the correlations of the letters, their relationships to powers that be. We've learned about the Esses, Sefirot, Belima, the underlying energetic patterns, which are, if you will, the life force energy within the entire construct of what we call reality. Now, with that understood, we now are going to tie things up. And you might think, well, this is just going to be summary, right? Oh, that's like the evil laugh of the mad scientist there. No, of course. This is not just a summary. All right? There's an old saying in Hebrew, Ha'aharon Haviv, which means the best is the last. All right? We've saved the best for last. We have talked all about energy. And we've discussed the power of mind. And we've discussed how you can use this power to change and influence the world around you. Just like I said in the introduction, a minute ago? Well, guess what? As we say in Hebrew, yesh od. There's more. No, I'm not going to get into hocus pocus magic. I'm not going to give you the secret ingredient of how to make a golem. And for all of those of you who are out there who think that you are using this book for magic, because I've seen the versions out there and people trying to say, I use it for magic. Really? Well, I'll tell you what. All right? Look me up online and send me your photos. All right? Email me. I would love to see pictures, or better yet, videos of any golem that you actually for real create. Now, don't send me some pictures of some nice big bronze 7-foot-tall bodybuilding, guys who just, took a little magic marker and wrote Amet on their forehead. That's not a golem. This is not Hollywood or television. What we're dealing with is real. And the nature of the reality of our world goes beyond the limitations of what you and I can physically see with our eyes or hear with these physical ears. And the wise words of that great Kabbalistic sage, remember fantasy sage I should say, Master Yoda, who said, luminescent beings are we, not this crude matter. Oh, how true. The words of fiction echo in the world of truth. We live in a much greater reality, much greater world. The Bible refers to it as the heavens and the earth. The heavens are what? What are the heavens? People are going to point up and say the sky. What's up in the sky that you want to point to? We've already learned. You have 12 constellations. We have 7 planets. But there is something curious in the reference to those 12 constellations and those 7 planets. Oh yeah, we all know the meaning of the numbers already. Yeah, they correspond to this, they correspond to that. This is their place. on the columns of the sefirotic, and they correspond to this body part and to this month and to this place. Yeah. Okay, we got all of that. Cool and groovy. But there's something much more. The missing ingredient that you've been looking for. This is it. It's a dramatic little pause there. It's a curious midrash, an old teaching of our rabbis, that states there's not even a blade of grass that does not have its own angel appointed over it. And it says, making it grow. Essentially, every life force, let me rephrase that, every life form has its own life force underlying it. And no, I'm not talking about some nebulous, bland energy. I'm talking about a conscious, sentient being that looks at you as a part of its self. So, for example, I, sitting here chatting with you, and you see I wave my hand all around. And guess what? On my hand, I have fingers. I think you do too. Okay? Now, see this one little finger here? Okay. Hello, finger. Hello, who are you? Okay, I'm not going to have a make-believe conversation with my finger because you and I know that that is make-believe. But what would happen if my finger had its own consciousness, its own sentience, and my finger thought that it was independent and separate? And it looks and sees me, but it sees me as an other, different, someone else. Whereas me, all I got to do is move the finger with the thought in my head, and I'm in total control. Do you understand that I'm describing to you now? The relationship between what you can call your higher self, to you, the conscious side, the lower self. Yeah, you are completely under the control of your higher self. Psychology has begun to understand this with regards to their understanding of the subconscious and the unconscious, the influence that it has in the conscious mind. This opens up, of course, the big philosophical question. Is there even such a thing as free will, or is everything predetermined destiny? Well, it's kind of like both, but that's besides the point. When we understand the nature of the letters and their correlations and how they really materialize and manifest, we dabble into, we fall into, we stumble into that domain of these higher consciousnesses. Can you make up that word? And they often are serving a higher purpose and point, and therefore are conduits or even messengers. And what is that word for messenger again in Hebrew? Oh, that's right, malach. All right, from the word lelechet. All right, I'm going for you. I am your malach. Usually we translate malach as angel. So yeah, chapter 6 is going to be our discussion of the angels. And angels are the missing link here, the conduits. They are the forces, the forms of forces through which many things materialize. On that note, I will give you now chapter 6, not so much based on minor words that Rabbi Chaim Vital has to say, because he really doesn't, like I said, say much, but an elaborated or a condensation of Rabbi Moshe Cordovero and the teachings of the prophetic Kabbalah. So I read to you the first Mishnah of chapter 6. Eluhem shalosh imot amesh. These then are the three mothers, Aleph, Mem, Shin. Now remember, the nature, shape, and form and figure of the letters, or even their sounds, isn't really so significant as to the forces that they represent. If you remember, we had the forces of right, left, center. expansive, restrictive, and balanced. Angels? You have angels which are expansive, angels which are restrictive, angels which are balanced. That's why of all these different angels, you have those who end with the name El, you have those who end with the name On, and you have others who are completely different with many things. These are actual races of beings. Oh, I know some of you ain't going to like the word, but let's use the word because it is properly applied here. These angelic races, they're not of our earth. So therefore they are not terrestrial. So you know what that makes them? Extraterrestrials. And that is who they are. They are extraterrestrial. But remember what we just said a minute ago. You have those on the right and those on the left. Those who are expansive, those who are restrictive. Now remember from Isaiah chapter 45 verse 7, God is the author of both. Day, night, good, bad, light, darkness. So all of these entities are working for the man. They're working for the boss. But the nature of their operations and work, if you remember, like in the Sefer Yetzirah is teaching us, can take any form. They can take the form of anything good or take the form of anything evil. We interact with them when we go into meditative trance and state. And through the power of mind and thought that we have experienced through our Sefer Yetzirah permutations, we interact with these entities. Which ones? I guess it all depends which direction your mind is focused on. And as your mind is directed there, that is, or I should say, those are the ones who you will come in contact with. From the three mothers, it says here, Yotzu mehem shlosha avot. From the three mothers come the three fathers. And it refers to the fathers here as air, water, and fire. But even though we're going to read down just a couple Mishnahs from now that air, water, and fire themselves are the mothers. A big secret here. Let me continue. From the fathers come forth progeny, Toledot. So you have the three fathers and their descendants, the 7 planets and their soldiers, Tzivotehem, from the word Tzivaot. And then the 12 Gvule Elechsan, boundaries of the diagonals. Okay. Rabbi Moshe Cordovero makes it very, very clear to us there's a big difference between fathers and their descendants and planets or stars and their armies or soldiers. He says this is definitely the reference to the difference between those of the right and those of the left. But he also goes into a discussion condemning what he calls philosophical approach to think that angels are completely non-corporeal beings. Now, this was an issue between Kabbalists and philosophers. And the Kabbalists said, no, angels are actually corporeal or can be. The philosophers say, no, they're all in the mind experienced. You know, they're both right. But you need to understand, because you have the right, you have the left, you have to understand the center. When you and I want to go to meet alien races, whether they are angelic or otherwise, inner earth, outer space, other dimension, how do we get there? No, we do not hitchhike a ride on our local flying saucer. We do something called astral projection, or what some others refer to as remote viewing. We take the consciousness that's in the body, refocus it out of here, and go someplace. For those practiced and trained, you can do this. And you will meet with many entities who are out there. And how do you know that this is not all a fantasy and delusion of your mind? Because you will bring back information. You will bring back insight. And if you wake up, I always tell people if this is in a dream, write a dream journal. So you have like something written by the side of the bed or record it on your phone or whatever. And as days or weeks or months go by, you will find a validation. This is, I know from my own experience. I have to admit, I'm a big rationalist. I'm the biggest skeptic. When I have my own experiences, I'm the first one to say, what on earth is that happening in my head? And I note it, I write it down, and then I say, let's see if there's any reality to this. And then, as I said, days or weeks or months might go by. And all of a sudden something happens, somewhere, something, and my eyes open. I remember this. I've seen this before. I knew this. And I go flipping back through my journals. I was told. I did see. And that is how I find validation in my experiences. I have seen that I've experienced things that others have as well. Brings validation. Validation is important. You want to know that you're not going crazy. But here, with regards to these other entities and experiencing them, recognizing and knowing that to every entity out there, like the blade of grass, there's its own higher self, its own angel. Now, if I want to talk to the angel of the grass, or of the tree, or of the lake, or of the mountain, yeah, I can close my eyes, project myself in meditation, and experience that entity. Being that I am projecting out of the physical into the energetic, I will appear to that entity in that form. That entity will appear, will receive or my appearance in their dimension and view me almost as the ghost. In that state, when we interact, all entities are in, quote, in the mind. So the philosophical point of view that Maimonides embraced is accurate from that point of view. But sometimes they come here. And when they do, they take corporeal form. How do they get here? Sometimes in the exact same way like we get there. They will sometimes astral project here. And like the prophet Elijah, they can take on any form whatsoever and interact with us. And we interact with Malachim all the time, and many of you have your own stories, and you darn well know it. Well, if you shook their hand, have a hand there, and it would be real. And then they go back to where they came from. So, this is the difference between fathers and their descendants, their children, and planets and their armies. Ramban Nachmani makes a very curious reference with this regards. Okay, think about this. We have the planets, we know that. Whether they're the actual planets in our solar system, or whether they represent higher energetic fields and forces, or we're talking about planets out there in the constellations. They have their armies. It is sad that each planet, like our Earth, has its own soul, conscious, sentient, higher self, which you will find the Kabbalists say are the angels themselves, Michael, Gabriel, even Samakel. And they all have their tzivotehem, their armies. Question. Are the, in quote, armies of the angels, that if the angel is materialized as a planet, are their armies materialized as the civilization or races that actually live on the face or hollow of that planet? If you follow through the logic of the discussion, the answer would be yes. And these are our extraterrestrials. When we read about the stories about our modern day flying saucers, no, we're not meeting with them. They're way, way, way above us in that respect. Like the book of Daniel says, they watch, they observe. Some of them get involved, but mostly they are here to watch. But we, in turn, can watch them. When we recognize who they are, what they are, where they are, how they are, we can ascend and interact with them, recognizing that they are the power force behind this physical world, just like a programmer in the computer of the Matrix. And just like the computer program of the matrix can be changed with a stroke of a keyboard, so can aspects and elements of this physical reality by rearranging the letters. So yeah, this is the power of the mind, but it works in the depths of a much greater reality. We'll talk about it more in our next class. So stay tuned. Check out the courses for meditation and everything else. Check out my Masechet Atzilut course. I think you're going to find it of interest. Okay, guys, I'll put a link to it. We'll talk to you all later. Shalom.